Hello and welcome back to the channel where we are building a video game from scratch using Love2d and Lua. So today we're working on our soundtrack system. So if you take a look at our main is basically handling this with a global soundtrack variable. And we basically, if the soundtrack's equal to the title track, and then if the track is playing, we're gonna, if it is not playing, then we're gonna play it. That's just so we don't play it until it's done, right? So we don't have multiple instances of it playing. And then same thing with the explore track. So we only have three. We have a dungeon, explore, and a title track music currently, and we're trying to toggle this in a manner that if you walk into the dungeon track will play only if it's not already playing, and also stop any other track that may be playing. So we have to come up, maybe make some global functions to kind of like handle stop all music so that we can play the only soundtrack that is enabled, so we don't get any bugs of like multiple songs playing at once. Yo, Google Smart, it's been good. I've been doing well. It's just like a lot of work trying to finish the demo. So we're trying to get the demo done by the end of this month, which if we can get the music stuff done, we have 3 NPCs to add, and then a couple new overworld sprites to add. But other than that, we have the dungeon and the first music minigame and the general layout all planned out. So we're in a good spot, but it's still not easy. We're not quite out of the mud, So we'll see how far we can get with this soundtrack here. So we initialize the soundtrack to an empty string. And basically, in the title screen state, we start it with title track, and then we switch to explore track if we select it. Now the main kind of handles what song to play and when, but then, yeah, we need a way to trigger it. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Google Smart. Sorry to hear that. Okay, so it looks like, we kind of need to, gosh, man. I think what we ultimately need to do is save the soundtrack data in every scene. So whatever soundtrack should be playing should be stored in the scene that is existing there. But also, trying to think, because like now for like a smooth fade in and stuff, if we go from, let's say, the explore track to the dungeon track, it'll cut off as soon as we transition. It would cut off right away. Regions on the map. Yeah, sorry to hear that, Google. Hopefully that, it'll never be easy, but hopefully it gets a little easier over time. Okay, so I guess let's try to do something in the main where we can kind of trigger the sound, the volume of our soundtrack. And I think the only way I know how to do it is to like go into the table of the track when we do a new audio source, and then do a set volume. Is it set volume? Let's see. Still sounded loud. Let me see. There's source set volume. You just take the source itself and then you colon set volume. Yeah. Oh, 0. It's from 0 to 1. 1 is the loudest. 0 is nothing. So if we want it to be half as loud, we'd put a 0.5, and let's see. Can't tell if that was quieter. Yeah, okay. Sweet. Okay, so yeah, we need to set the volume. So let's take this 0.2, at least for now. Call this OST gain or volume, whatever. OST volume. So let's go to our constants and add it as a 0.2. Just put it somewhere. And we'll just set to that OST volume every time we play a track in our main. So we'll just say set volume, OST volume. Explore track. Oh. Okay, yep. We need to set it for the right key. Okay. Okay, so yeah, if we walk into a dungeon, we need the different music, right? So I just want to hear if the music loops. I think this track is like 1:20. Okay, here's the loop. It's not as smooth as, I'm hoping, but it does loop. It sounds okay. I made it sound, if it was perfectly back to back, it does sound like a smoother loop, but the implementation doesn't quite catch the very frame. I don't know. It sounds good enough. It's just not like flawless. But we need to not only set the volume, we need to set the soundtrack depending on what scene we're in. So I think we need to set a soundtrack field on the scene table and kind of assign them. And then whenever we scene transition or warp zone, we need to check what is, the soundtrack value of the scene we're about to walk into. And this is like one of the last steps of like level design and stuff, right? Because it's like I'm only tweaking this stuff because we basically got the demo locked in, and it's just one thing that was easier than trying to fix the saving and loading, which is really tough. So I think at least for now, what we can do is give us a soundtrack table, a field on our scenes, and just populate them with anything like I guess just default explore track, But then we can go in and actually declare the dungeon quadrants to be dungeon track. And then we need to add the checks for a scene transition and a warp zone. So it shouldn't be that bad. It shouldn't be that bad. It'd be really nice if we could have like a in-game settings where we can like tweak the loudness of the music too, and the sound effects, which would be kind of cool. But that is getting sidetracked for the demo. So let's go look at our table when we do this thing in map declarations. Right, where we give every scene, we have 200 scenes in our game as of right now. And oh my goodness. We put some empty dummy data inside. So it's like we're saying that this field gets a table. So if we don't need a table, we just need a string. So like we'll say that this is just called OST. And it won't be a table. It'll just be an empty string initialized, or we can put explore track in it. So now what we can do is just change in our main when we go to when we first set our title track, our soundtrack equal to title track. Where do we do that? What are we doing, man? Right here. Title screen state, we set it here. Okay. Well, where else? Because I'm kind of thinking this doesn't need to be set in any init. It kind of just needs to be set upon either a scene transition or a warp zone. And we kind of manually change it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is we'll just initialize it to be an empty string. And then what we do is we give a field called explore track. So now if we change our state, I want to say if we go into our main and change our state not to title state, but to play state. So we skip title state, just go right to play state. We shouldn't play any music because we only change it from a title screen state. So we're not playing any music here, which is right. We do need a way to initialize the particle system on a scene that we load, because there is a particle system here. It's just, oh, see, look, and then that's actually pretty good. Why did it, well, actually, yeah, why did it play as soon as we walked? Why did it do that? We're printing up. Okay, it doesn't get populated until we move scenes for some reason. So why, actually, yeah, why is it getting set to explore track? We set it here from the title screen state, but we're not even in there. We set it here in our scene. Oh, if it's a dungeon. Is this really where it's happening? Well, let's see. Okay. Wow. Okay. So we're basically, at least this is for a warp zone. If we're colliding with a warp zone and we're not already warping, we're saying if it's a dungeon. Okay, so we do actually, this could work. Well, this isn't so great because, okay, what we could do, because this v.dungeon, what v is an object of a warp zone, and we're not populating our warp zones with the field of whether or not they're a dungeon. We're kind of going a different direction. We don't have this .dungeon field. This was kind of just stubbing out. Because if we look for a .dungeon, we don't have anything. Well, actually, yeah, we do initialize it in the warp zone, but we're not actually doing anything with it. So we'll have to remember to delete that if this new method works. Yeah, let's just take it out before we forget. So, yeah, let's see. Dungeon. Yeah, we're not going to initialize a dungeon here in the warp zone, which means if we ever initialize a warp zone and gave it a dungeon option of true, we need to just negate that. Insert warp zone. Oh gosh, man. Okay, it looks like we don't actually insert a dungeon field. I mean, yeah, and it would be, let's see, it would be a true, but that doesn't help much in searching. Oh my god, yeah. Okay, so let's assume the dungeon, the dot dungeon is okay. Okay, so what we do want to do is, where we did have this dot dungeon, we kind of want to do, not if the v dot dungeon, but we basically want to say that we want to set our soundtrack equal to the dot ost string that is going to be inside the scene that we're transitioning into. So it's not, this part's kind of hard because our warp zone knows where we're going. This warp row, that's what it is, warp row. So if we go map into the warp zone object that we collided with, warp row, that's the place we're going to. And then v dot warp call. So we're basically gonna reassign the soundtrack to be equal to the OST string field that we put inside the map. So let's see, because we should have no string assigned in the soundtrack. So if we did have a soundtrack enabled and it wasn't an empty string right now, it would print up on screen here. So let's see if by the time we warp zone, if we warp into, when we collide with a warp, we're just gonna set the soundtrack equal to the OST of the map that we are warping to, which right now should be the explore track, because we set them equal to explore track, I believe. Uh-oh. Yes, we set all the .osts to explore track for now. So let's just see if we can pull in explore track by walking over. Nice. Okay, so this is just on warp. So we need other stuff. So, because what we could do is we can go to this .ost and we can say, well, this is actually going to be the dungeon track when we go here, but it's not just going to be the dungeon track. It's going to be, yeah. So like it got the track, but over here it would need to load the overworld track, right? So we need different OST fields based on what you're going into and what they are. So we have explore track as a default, but we need to kind of overwrite whatever. So I don't even know where we would do this, but let's just try and say that map 3.5 has an OST. You know, ideally we can kind of like maybe even add this as a, let's see. So upon a warp zone, it should go back to explore track. So let's say that it defaults as a dungeon track just to see if it switches, you know, because we want to be able to transition between two. So let's just see. So it should transition here. Okay, so it didn't pause. It didn't pause every other track. So we can make a global function that is like stop all music, right? Stop all OST or whatever, because we don't want any sounds to be playing if we're about to assign a new soundtrack. So where do we put? I guess it'd be in our main. Yeah, so see how we're only stopping one song before we play explore track. We're not stopping the dungeon track. So we do need a little function that is like stop all music. Stop OST. And what that'll do is just stop all of the tracks, all of the OST tracks we've got. So it'll look like this, where we say, well, title track is going to stop, and also explore, also dungeon. So we have this little function just called stop OST, no arguments. We're just going to call that whenever we're about to play a new thing. So we're not going to stop, but we are going to just say stop OST. And for the title track, we're going to do the same thing, where we're just going to say, well, we're going to stop the OST, we're going to set its volume, and then play for the loop. And then here, we don't stop explore track, we stop OST, set our volume, and play. So now we should load 2 different songs and only one song at a time, hoping. Okay, so it didn't work out. It didn't work outside this warp zone because... Why? The other warp zone... It knew how to play dungeon when we walk in the warp zone, but it didn't know to change back to the explore track once we came out of the warp zone. So it should have been... Oh, we have to set. Okay, well... Oh, we set it. Okay. So this is okay then. So let's say that we default to explore track. And we kind of just have to set whatever's a dungeon. So I'm going to take a little note here about which scenes are dungeons, and we can populate them with dungeon tracks. So let's see. So this is set as explore track. So we're looking for 113, 113, and 213. So 113 and 213. We'll do this. Okay, so both of these should have a dungeon track. And we have a default of explore track. So we'll see if coming out of the warp zone would go back to explore track. So let's see, dungeon track. Yep. Nice. Okay, so now we need a dungeon track here. So this is 411. 411. Oh god. 411 is the bottom. So let's just get dungeon track on 411. I'm sure there's a better way to do this than manually kind of assigning them like this, but if this works for now, we can just move on. So we need 411, we need 311. Then we need the second column, oopsie, which would be 312. And the one right below it, which is 412. And then we need the third row, which is the last of that dungeon. So it'll be both 3 and 4, and it'll be 13. So 13, 13. Okay, so let's test the bottom dungeon. Every scene in the bottom dungeon should have dungeon track. So let's see. This is the top dungeon. This is like the shortcut dungeon. Okay, so this is the dungeon here we just added. Nice. Oh. we gave ourselves 1 heart. You know what? It's a good reason we put a magical health elixir over here, so we could drink it for the bubbles. Let's go. All right, full health. Let's try that again. Uh-oh. Oh my god. I already lost a whole heart. Nice. Take a shortcut. Whoosh. Dude, I messed that up, man. Dude. Dude. I'm gonna reset it. Yo, okay, cool. It's seemingly working. Okay, we do need to, we need to pause music if we pull out our loot, so it doesn't screw that up. Okay, but this is seemingly working. This is, we can call this the Green Tunic Dungeon. So I do want one more track for inside, like indoors. So I kind of want the Explore track to be the outside overworld. I want a new track for inside stuff on Main Street, like if you go into the inn there, also inside Fisherman's Hut. So like I want all the indoor stuff to be a little more, I don't know, subdued, because you're inside. So I'll make a new track for that. But I also wanted a track for maybe for Game Over, or just cut the music for Game Over. Let's see. This is the what? This is the shortcut to Ice Mountain. Okay, so it's seemingly working. We default them to explore track. Okay, what else? Title screen state changes. Game over state we can set. In game over state we can set it to an empty string. Oh, and you know what? Game over. Is game over even a state we made? It's a falling chasm state is what it was. Okay. So I guess it's like once we change to it, we don't want to put this in the init, do we? Uh-oh. Let's see. Soundtrack is just empty. Let's see. It didn't stop. So it did flush the soundtrack table, but it did not flush, or it did not stop the OST. So we can that should be a global function. I think we can just use that. Okay. It did stop the music. And when we continue, it is broken because we have fucking shit. Fuck. Oh god. Oh my god. Okay. Are we loading our player data? Sometimes we don't load our player data upon a falling chasm, which we just tried. But we have it also turned off here, which is continue game. Okay, let's try loading our player data. We also need to, you know, it depends if we want to reinitialize the start of the music. If you continue in a dungeon, right, the dungeon music should start playing once you hit continue and you come back to the dungeon, because that's the active song. But it's only the active song. You know, we cleanse the soundtrack field as soon as we get a game over, so we need to repopulate it based on the OST table of the current scene we're in. So we can just do it right here. This is a non-chasm game over. Okay, so let's test that. And we will take basically the current map row OST, and we want to just take the value from that string and assign it into our soundtrack upon a load player data. And we also want to do that if we want to load player data from a falling chasm state, like right here. So load the data, set your soundtrack to the current scene. I think that would work. Map, scene view, current row. Yeah, Jimmy, I guess sometimes it's like, if I catch her like right when her light turns off, she's still kind of sleeping. And since my light is bright, she might think it's still day, so she's not crawling around. But I bet if I turn off my light, she might start getting more active. Okay, let's try load player data from a falling chasm state and then a non-chasm state. So let's see. Okay, game over, stop music. Okay, it loaded our last save, which is right, and it also queued up the explore track. Okay, well that makes sense, because we're actually, yeah, we can't ever really start the game in a dungeon, because you can only start game where you can save game, and that's only at a prayer idol, or it's a zazen idol, and that's only like outside. So I think we're good there. So let's see what else. We need to test if a bat kills us. Let's test if a bat kills us. We should load at our last save if a bat kills us. Let's see. Because a bat killing us would be a normal game over. It's not a falling chasm state, so let's just see if a bat kills us over here. Nice. Okay, sweet. It's seemingly working. Oh my god, this guy's gonna kill me. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna add a button to mute the music. Just for my sake. Let's see. If game broken, fix game. Yep. That's pretty essential. Let's do... If M is pressed, then we want to toggle our music volume off. So we're going to say, well, if our OST volume is equal to 0, we basically want to just swap this over. So we would want to set OST volume gets OST original volume. What's on default? Okay. So if M is pressed, we're going to set it. If it's already quiet, we're going to set it to the default volume. If it's not already quiet, we want to mute it. So we would say OST volume is now 0. So what we need here is just to set a constant OST default volume to be equal to the 0.2 so that we can reset it. Okay. Let's see. I was not able to mute it because we didn't set volume. Just changing. How do we do this? Okay, I think I know how we do this. Like just setting the volume, just setting the variable doesn't actually set the volume of the sound that's playing. So what we can do is M is pressed. This is just a toggle. So we could say we're going to set the volume. Then we're going to go into our soundtrack. And it's actually going to be our OST table. OST is like the sound, the new audio sound. I guess we could cast this to a string so we can index this. Does that work like that? We're going to say convert our soundtrack into a string. It should be a string already. I think it would be okay just to do this. We're going to say OST at the index of the soundtrack. We're going to actually now set the volume equal to the OST volume. Just like that. And then same thing here. Set volume to the OST volume. So I guess we could only do it once and say do your thing, set the volume, and then we just set the volume once we have the value. Let's see if we can mute the soundtrack now. Nice. Okay, cool. Great. Okay, cool. So I can mute it now. Just for my sake while I explore. So I'm trying to think if I need... Oh, I want a Dark Forest. I think I want a different song for Dark Forest too. I think the desert is fine to not have a soundtrack, but I think I want an indoor soundtrack and a soundtrack for the Dark Forest. So that's two new soundtracks I need to compose and export. I'll work on that maybe off stream, but okay, I think this is okay. We'll need to re-export a minimap. This is fine though. Okay. Okay, so we have a default soundtrack for all scenes. We have specific ones for the dungeons. Let's take a look if there's any specific special dungeons we might have missed. I think there's only the 2. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Then, yeah, then I'll just need the other 2 songs. And then, yeah, the title screen state is set up with the title screen music. So what could we do? I'm kind of wanting to do like one thing at a time as I finish it. So I think I might just compose the next 2 soundtracks that we need so that we can put it in the music system and then be done with the music system. And then yeah, let's make sure we stop the soundtrack once we go to the title screen too. Yeah, we're just gonna stop OST. Then assign the title track. So let's just make sure we can die and then let's do a non-chasm death. So, oops. Because right there we manually stopped the soundtrack, so I want to try to die by a bat so that we can hit quit and see if the title screen plays the song from the dungeon or not. So we'll try that. Okay. I mean, I think it's working. It looks pretty good. And we tested coming out of Dungeon 1 already, and that worked. And coming back out works also. Cool. And we got a muting function for it. So that's nice. That's good. That's good. Okay, so yeah, I think my next step is I'm going to compose 2 new songs, one for the Dark Forest, one for the inside buildings. And then maybe like an alternate. I kind of want to maybe like throw a filter on the explore track and try to like, it'll be like the same melody, but like maybe like through a low pass filter or something. What's up, IU? That's a big name. Call you IU. Welcome in. Yeah, I think I'm wrapping up because we just got the soundtrack imported into our game, and I need 2 new songs. And I normally compose those on my synthesizer, and I don't have a way to kind of get that into Steam. Oh, okay. I would say if you want to learn Lua, just check out Games 50 on YouTube. They teach you how to do Pong and then Flappy Bird, and that's how I learned. So I really recommend Games 50. They taught me everything I know about Lua. So let's see. yeah, if you're curious about Lua, I'd say definitely start there. Because I'm wrapping up for tonight, so I don't think I'll be doing any more Lua programming tonight. I'll be git committing and calling it right here. But yeah, Games 50 on YouTube. Here, let me see if I can find the channel for you. Okay, well, I don't have... The channel is like the CS50, Harvard CS50 channel. But if you check out this video, this is where they make Pong. And that's the first episode of them doing Lua development. And if you watch that, you don't have to code along, just watch that and see what they're doing. You'll pick up Lua really fast. And that's a simple enough program that you'll understand what's happening when they you know, type out the syntax, because a lot of the stuff I'm doing is kind of like custom to how my game is operating, so it won't be as helpful to you as that Pong video. So I suggest watching that. Okay, so we added a soundtrack field to each scene instantiation, defaulting to explore track, and then we manually declared the dungeon tracks. And we're basically, yeah, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this .dungeon for the warp zone objects. Let's get rid of that. Yeah, we don't want that. Okay. Now, when we collide with the warp zone, we basically assign the new soundtrack. I kind of feel like we need to stop OST here also. Anytime we reassign the OST, we want to make sure none are actively playing, so we can't have more than one song play at once. Okay. And then, yeah, we took out the dungeon parameter for our warp zone because we're doing it based on the soundtrack field now, the global variable of soundtrack, and then we turn back on load player data. Okay. OST title track stop. If we load. Okay. We should change this one in our title screen state to be stop OST. Yeah, instead of just stopping the title track, we'll stop any sound that might be playing. Cool. Okay, then we set our soundtrack to be the explore track. Well, yeah, I mean, that's okay. That's right. I mean, ideally we would pull the field for the OST of whatever scene we're loading in once we've loaded the data. So it's just that for now, for the demo, all the scenes are just an explore track, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to change it to something other than this. But ideally, we load this from whatever the loaded current scene is. And you know what, let's, instead of just writing to do, let's just do it. We do this load player data, right? So like if we go to where we wrote this function, we could find that we declare it here, and we're pulling out values into the scene view current map row column. So those are the two things we want. Scene view current map row and column once we load. So instead of assigning it here, we will say go to our global map, go to our scene view current map, and is it row then column? I think it is. Yo, Ayu, hey, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Current map row. Yep, let's go. Current map column. Okay, and then it's the .ost, which is a string. So if we assign it just like that, instead of hard coding the explore track, it'll be whatever we happen to store, which by default is the OST of explore track. So let's do this. We load the data, we set the soundtrack based on the OST of the scene of the current map we're loading, and then we go ahead and do this. This is wrong. Why are we're kind of like manually declaring the health potion to be here. This is in the title screen state when we hit continue. What exactly is this? What are the steps? Step 2 is fade out. Okay, so if we're on the title screen, we have this option. So this is kind of weird because... Oh, okay. Yeah, we don't have a quit. Ideally, we probably should have a new game as well as a continue on the title screen, but we don't have that just yet. So yeah, I don't think we'll do that for the demo, but in the full game we'll have it where you can have 3 save files, and you can just, when you hit continue, you choose which save file you want to go to. But we are not worrying about that for the demo. So let's just see if going from the title screen to the starting point gets us the correct OST for whatever the map is that we loaded, which should be explore track, because that's where our last save was. So let's go back to our .main here, and when we go to play state, yeah, let's just go to title state and test it. We'll test it from booting at the title screen state as well as dying and switching back. So okay, that one worked. So let's die here. Quit. Oh, I thought we'd be dead. We loaded with more health. Oh man, dude. See, our magic health potion is still in the wrong spot. Okay, it works. It works. Okay. And the bat wasn't tracking us there because I coded some stuff that if you die into a chasm, the bat kind of flies away to give you some space. Because if they were to pursue you and you flew in the chasm, you load in at your last checkpoint, which is like a spot on the ground before you fell. And if the bat encroached on that position, you'd reload and the bat would just collide with you, so we'd have to, it just got messy. So that's why he was off in the corner when I was falling, is because every time I fall, I gave him some logic to just fly away from me a little bit to give us some buffer to respawn, and also just to be nice to the player, like to give them a bit of space when they're dying so that they have a chance to avoid the next bat spitball. Okay, so we need to fix our loading system for our magic inventory and our current item inventory slot. So right here, see, we're loading. I tried to load where we had a magic potion equipped, because we kind of have to load the inventory system with whatever you've unlocked or whatever you haven't unlocked. So once you get the potion, we need to... Yeah, I don't think I'm going to worry about this tonight. I got really overwhelmed trying to do this the other night, so I think I'll call tonight good, and I will work on the next 2 songs. We'll get those implemented. It'll be really easy. And then we'll go back and we'll shift gears and go towards the saving and loading, because once the saving and loading is pretty much ironed out, then all we've got to do is 2 new NPCs. We've already got the AI logic for them. So 2 new NPCs with different walking animations, and then a couple new overworld sprites to design a little bit more pretty of like Main Street and the surrounding area around the Dark Forest. Then we'll add in some corrupted geckos on Gecko Road and the Dark Forest. So that'll be next, and hopefully we can get all that stuff done here in the next week so that we can finish the demo by the end of May. I don't think it's too much to ask to pull that off. I think we could do it. So we'll get commit this with soundtrack system for muting and initializing. On OST fields for each scene. Okay. Oh no. I forgot to add. I've got to get alias for get a quotes is get add everything and commit with a message. So we'll just get push and we will run credits and call it a night. Yo, thanks, Gwynch. Yeah, it is definitely coming together. It's starting to feel real, and I just want the demo to be done so that I can share it with people, so that, because like I've been working on it almost a year and a half now, so it'll be nice to point them to a link where they can actually kind of see it. So yeah, oh man, we got to optimize the mobile deployment for the demo too. That's going to be tough. But we'll call it a night there. Thanks for watching, everyone. I will see if anyone is streaming here for a raid, and then just call it a night. We got... None of my programming homies are streaming. We'll raid out to B, because he's actually programming, so we'll raid out to B, call it a night. Thanks for hanging, Squinch. Thanks for the new follows. I'll be back tomorrow. I try to do everyday streams, so I'm not always successful, but I post all the backlogs to YouTube, which links in my channel description and everything. But if you want to see any of the entire process of building this game, it's been on VODs. So yeah, thanks for watching. Peace out.